Welcome on in, everybody, to the Saturday Night Network for another season 51 cast preview podcast here today to talk about Bowen Yang's return to Saturday Night Live for season 51. And joining me back on the podcast is the great Rebecca North. Rebecca, how are you?
Good. I'm so happy that we're able to talk about Bowen in season 51 and that he will be returning. I know there was a bunch of rumors, as you could imagine, but I think his emotional exit on season 50 at the Goodnights was really making people worried. But I'm so happy that we're going to be able to talk about him in season 51 and he'll be there to really carry a lot of the show on his back.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, probably the biggest face of the show right now is Bowen Yang, and he'll be back at the show for his seventh season on Saturday Night Live. It's going to be exciting to watch. We're, of course, here as a presentation of LateNighter.com and here today to talk through everything we expect to see from Bowen in season 51. So you mentioned it, Rebecca, that there was this emotional moment at the end of season 50 where we see him, I think he's hugging Ego in the Goodnights, and there's like they're crying, and there's a lot of speculation of like, is this it for Bowen? He had become such a big star outside of the show as well as on it. And finally, he has returned. I believe he said I know it's been announced from different publications, but I believe he also said on Las Culturistas that he would be officially returning. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. And I think in a lot of the Emmys interview content, he was confirming that last week. I mean, he was up on stage when to get the award for the 50th with Lauren. And I mean, I feel like he could have gone either way up there, but in a lot of the red carpet interviews and stuff, he was just very much confirming and saying that he was looking forward to the next season. But with that tearful goodbye, I know very soon after, every publication picked it up. And then he very quick followed with a bunch of interviews just saying like, it was a monumental season. He feels like it was for him, for the show and all of that. And he was just emotional, which is good. But when we're hearing about cast shakeups for well over a year and saying like, you were just anticipating who was going to come back, who was not. And that felt like the only confirmed exit then. And it wasn't. So I'm very glad about that. But I think he just loves SNL so much. I mean, he was at the Emmys nominated for Best Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series. He didn't win, but there aren't that many SNL cast members that have been even nominated for that. So I think that's just extra special to him as well. And I feel like he got a lot of airtime during the Emmys. I kept flashing him in the audience. So he's just loved, as you were saying.
It makes sense. And he was a big part of hyping up season 50, and they really just made him the face of the show for a while. So are you personally surprised that he would come back for season 51?
I kind of am. I really did think it was like end on a high. He was a very big part in the 50th anniversary special. I mean, he was doing a ton of press as he does, and he was a big part of the actual production. He was a big part of the musical guest night as well, being on stage also. And like that wasn't as common for the current cast members for that. So I kind of thought, I mean, I'm happy he's returning, but could be one of those end on a high. But looking at all of the departures for season 50, specifically Heidi and Ego, it kind of seems like it's good to keep him as some sort of continuity for the season. I mean, him and Mikey staying, I think, are just the most familiar faces that we've seen for a while, and that can carry the show and hopefully transition and do more of a passing of the baton to some of the newer people on the cast. And I think he's the perfect person to do that transition because it did. I mean, we were talking about at the end of the season, I was not shocked to see Heidi and Ego were leaving. I was shocked that they didn't do a bigger farewell, but it makes sense that Bowen's going to stay to help with this new cast. There are so many new cast members, and he's a constant. He can kind of mesh with anyone. So it's a good thing that he is staying.
Have you gotten the feeling at all that there's a possibility that Bowen could leave at Christmas, or do you think that he's like locked in for the season and ready to go?
I think easily. I think Wicked premieres in October, and I know his role, Fanny, is not like a huge role in, I mean, it's not really a huge role in the movie, yet he was a big face in all the press of it all. I think that from that aspect, I mean, I would hypothesize the Cynthia Erivo hosting because we had Ariana do the last press tour. I think Cynthia would be amazing, or even the two of them, which I think it's a little more far-fetched, but I think there's a really strong possibility that Bowen would want to help with that transition and be there for that, be there for a lot of the press. But then at the same time he might have to miss some shows for press. I don't know how pivotal he'll be in the press cycle this time because just like his character is just not that huge in part 2 of Wicked. But I do think there's that aspect that come December, he might want a proper send off, and he might want that to be like, we know he's emotional. We know he attributes a lot of his fame and success to the show and to like all the opportunities it's awarded him. So I can foresee that. We know his strongest writing partner, Celeste, is not coming back also. So I think it'll be really, really interesting, at least even if he does depart in December, what who he's going to write with, who he's going to be paired with for a lot of that.
That's an interesting aspect of what we might see from him, and I'll get to that in a moment. I just want to say that there is the possibility that Bowen takes something from Cecily Strong, who during the last major shuffle stuck around for those few months and then had her major goodbye at Christmas. So it is
Yeah,
possible
I
to see
think
that.
I think it's a big shot, and I think some of his friends can come help do it. I mean, that's like the thing with Bowen that I think stands out in the past 10 years, 7 years of the cast is that he's not only just the face of the show, I think, in just the media and pop culture. I mean, we have so many huge faces, but he really is the star in regards of like his popularity in. I mean, the Emmys, he helped open it, and I know that was some other SNL because Nate Bargatze really got famous because of doing SNL, and I think that's the only reason he hosted the Emmys. But the camera flashing towards him in the audience is the same way they're flashing to Martin Short, Steve Martin, and Selena Gomez. And just he's so big, and I think there's so many connections. So, I mean, what we can look forward to him seeing, and I think he's done a really good job, say specifically in the past 2 years, is he works well with everyone on the cast. We know he's stronger working with Ego, strong working with Sarah. So I do anticipate a lot more of that coming into the season. But he has such partnerships with the hosts and musical guests and when they're in a sketch. And I think that's a really thing that's important to him, which is why I do think he might leave in December and kind of go out on the high with maybe Cynthia or someone from Wicked that he's like his big fame. I mean, I don't foresee Matt Rogers hosting, but maybe some other people in his sphere of world doing a cameo or even just making a popping up on the stage in somewhere. Because I think if 80, I would imagine like him and 80 are really, really close. Imagine 80 hosting and hosting even like the Christmas episode, which I think could definitely be a possibility. I don't know what she's promoting, but he has so many strong connections that I think he would want to do it right because of just his relationships with everyone in media and in SNL.
That would be an amazing moment. So you mentioned Celeste Yim not returning to the show. Celeste joined the show in season 46, 1 year after Bowen Yang joined the show. Celeste and Bowen became very close, and they created this incredible writing partnership over the last few years. Celeste missed the first half of season 50, wasn't there, and Bowen still seemed to have a very strong first half. So it's not like we haven't seen Bowen at the show do well without Celeste, but certainly now that Celeste has officially moved on from the show, there were questions of like, oh, would this lead to Bowen departing? Or then who fills that vacuum of the position of working with Bowen Yang on Saturday Night Live? How do you feel like Celeste's departure will ultimately affect Bowen?
I mean, we know Bowen's a strong writer. That's how he got his start to begin with. So I do think that's why we didn't see a ton of impact because he has a strong voice, he has a strong perspective, and I think there are only so many people in the current cast that have that. I would say him, Sarah, Dismukes, they have a really strong perspective and strong characterization that he was very, very okay without Celeste. But I do think that'll go into effect because that was only half the season. And then I actually think Bowen's shown like was shining more in the second half. He also wasn't in as much of the first because of just like press and Wicked and all of that. So I think that also could have been a strong correlation there. But I still think he'll be Bowen. I think he'll be very powerful. He does have a ton of connections with a lot of the other writers if you look through the credits and all the things that he writes. But I think what's kind of lacked the most is those weekend update characters. I think Celeste has always had a strong partnership there with like the characterization of all the best Bowen moments on update. And I think that that's something that he's going to need to work on, and because that is what he's known for. So especially if he's going to leave, he's going to want to do some of those whatever's in pop culture, let's make an object person. And I think Celeste had a really strong hand in that. So that will be something I'm looking forward to see if Bowen can carry that on his own.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's written with Allison Gates a lot, one of the head writers, also Jimmy and Cara
Jimmy, I was going to
O'Sullivan.
say.
Yeah, I think Jimmy Fowley, Cara Sullivan, like I think that they would be, it would make sense. I mean, Jimmy Fowley was brought on to work with Heidi But Heidi's no longer there, and I think if Allie's coming back to the show, I think that's a good fit as well. So there's a lot of great writers on the staff that would love to work with Bowen, clearly. So I'm not so concerned about that, but it is just a footnote to think about when preparing for
Mhm.
the season. Going back to last season, was there anything that Bowen did in season 50 that really stood out to you when you start to imagine what we could see from him in 51?
Yeah, I think the strongest two partnerships he has on the cast were Ego and Sarah. And with Ego's departure, I think we can see a lot of him and Sarah teaming up, and for all the future, I think they have a really strong, they have a good dichotomy because Bowen is, yes, he is more like extra and he really diverts the characters, but he is more straight and straight toned, I think, than Sarah is. And I think that, and same with Ego too. So like whenever they had partnered the two of them, yes, I'm imagining like their update, not like anything that they've done together. And even like him and 80 on update, 80 was more crazy. And then Bowen was more straight laced, but we know that he still had a lot of good singers. And I think pairing up him with someone that is just more outrageous than he is, because he doesn't have that full tone. I mean, I'm talking to someone that is just more monotone in my speaking voice. So even though I am an expressive person, like I'm never gonna be like the crazy one because I just can't. So I think pairing him up with someone that would be able to do that, I think that'll be really interesting to see how him and Sarah, but him and Ego's relationship really stood out to me last season. So I feel like he's going to need a gap to fill. And I don't quite know who's going to fill that position for him. I know we didn't see like a ton of Chloe last season, which is why I am shocked she's even returning. But maybe they could play up what I feel like they had a few years ago, where they worked really, really well together, in my opinion. And maybe we'll see some more of that coming on. I'm like looking through the new, like anyone new coming into the show, and there's no one that stands out to me to be like that's such an obvious partnership. But I think time will tell to what's going on. Maybe like Ashley and him could have a little bit more of that because she is definitely the more loud, expressive. I think when you pair someone like that together, it does work very, very well, which is maybe why I know we know Kate's outrageous and ridiculous, but I don't think her and Bowen had like the strongest partnership because I just think they're very similar in their comedy. But 80, Sarah, Ego, they pair really well with Bowen. And even Matt Rogers is like writing partner outside of the show and they do a lot together. Matt is just more loud, outrageous, like boisterous than Bowen is. So we need someone to kind of fill that void to play with Bowen.
Yeah, I agree. I think that so if I go back to think about some of the things we saw in season 50, I believe him and Sarah, like they did that Shrek the Musical thing from the Charlie XCX
Yeah.
episode. So like that's a good example of something that you might see with him working with Sarah. Obviously, there's like a huge opening for Sarah Sherman to take over the show this season. So I would think that the two of them, like you said, are going to be a huge partnership. Chloe's the interesting one, right? Because I think that Chloe has found a better role for herself over the last couple of seasons where she hasn't been the lead of the cast, and that's been a good thing for her. Not that she hasn't done good work, but that she's really good in those supporting roles. And I think now she's sort of thrust into the spotlight a little bit more without Ego and without Heidi. And I wonder with her and Bowen, who came into the cast together, if we will end up seeing more things from them. One of the things we saw last season was that big dumb line pre-tape that we got like towards the second half of the season. Like, is that the type of thing maybe we would expect to see from Bowen and Chloe?
I don't. Yeah, I'm. This is where I'm not exactly sure. I feel like Chloe is more unique. Where I feel like her first season or two, she was being being set up to be that lead, and I think Bowen was more of like like more of the background, more of like in his first season, and then it just flipped. And I think it just very much flipped with Sarah. Also, I think, and then Bowen finding his just way with 80. I think that was a really strong partnership too. I think Ego and him. I think he's made these strong connections, and then kind of did take over. So I can kind of see him and Sarah just going for it. And then this is a long shot. There is the conversation of if there's going to be a departure and maybe to give him more room for other stuff, if Che and Jost are done, is he going to take over Update? I know that was kind of something that was always thrown out over the past few years as like they're setting him up, not necessarily setting him and Sarah up, but like maybe could set them up. I don't really foresee that happening, but I mean, with Longfellow leaving and that kind of put the nail in the coffin for him hosting Update, is this something that they're going to transition Bo into doing after? I think that could be very interesting. I said before, Rosebud leaving, I think they also had a really strong partnership, and I could have seen the two of them hosting Update together, but she's not on the show anymore. So now I'm like, but she's only touring through like the fall. So there is something interesting where it's like, I could see a world in which he took over Update, and I would be very happy with that. But if that were the case, would it have happened already? Is more of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think we're too far into the career to start to look at that like whole new life for Bowen. If he was to
Yeah.
take over Update, I mean, he would need to be at the show for at least another couple of years, and I don't know if that's the type of career he's going for. I mean, I said last year that I think he's the first cast member we've gotten in a very long time that's become more famous outside of the show than inside of
Yeah.
the show. Like, I can't think of the last person. I mean, we probably did that exercise back then, but I can't think of another person that's had that trajectory where he's just like been so successful, that it hasn't been like parallel to the success on the show. And that's not to say that he isn't like the face of the show or isn't dominating. Like, it just, he hasn't had the type of like success season after season after season where you're like, oh yeah, slam dunk Hall of Famer. Like, he's one of the great cast members, but I don't know that he's in the pantheon. And certainly outside of the show, he's become one of the most famous cast members.
Yeah.
So it's just,
Because
it's
like
an
even you think of like Bill Hader, Tina, Amy in more recent years, but it wasn't when they were on SNL that they were as famous as they were off at the same time, you know? Like they were famous for SNL and then that continued after. Bowen is just now like a staple in
yeah.
society, honestly. So that is really interesting.
That's my point, right? That like if he like traditionally, if somebody just suddenly got so famous off of the show, and this is all like Bowen's hard work that he's done to become so successful outside of the show, that they would leave. But he hasn't, and he's staying, even though he hasn't had that like absolute dominant season. I think you could maybe say that season 50 was his season. I would certainly say that for the first half of the season, where he gets this JD Vance role, and then he's like has Ariana Grande host the show. He's like very involved with her, very involved with Charlie XCX. Like you said, his connection to hosts. The back half of the season, I'd say he sort of took a step back in a way. I think he was more part of the ensemble. But there is an opportunity here that season 51 could absolutely be his season. He could dominate and take over and then have that success on the show that he's been getting off the show.
But it's also like, what will his role be off the show? I mean, there's like a few different things. I mean, yes, he's good. He's amazing in movies and TV being like more of a side character. And then he did have his own movie that I watched and it was great, but it didn't necessarily like hit it out of the park. So movie star, maybe not. I mean, maybe if we looked 10 years ago, it would have been a sitcom. But as we know, that's not necessarily I think you looked back in the day at 30 Rock, Parks and Rec, all of that, and you're like, that's where I need to be. I need to have my own sitcom. See, I mean, Keenan was the most recent to do it, and it didn't really succeed enough, and then he's remained on the show. So it's like, what is next? What is the optimal thing? I mean, he already has a very, very successful podcast. Does he do a talk show? Does he do something along those lines? Like, what will he want to do after this is, I think, maybe the reason why he hasn't left yet. I mean, he was in the biggest movie of the year last year as a very small role as Fanny, and then he did have his own movie that really, it did really well in Cannes and did well and all that, but didn't hit it out of the park in the box office. So it's like, how does he go from here? And maybe that's why he's back, because there is not the optimal trajectory like there was 10 years ago. It's like sitcom. You got to get into sitcom. Then you have to have your movie with some people from SNL and be really successful. That's not the thing anymore. And we're seeing that with Kate. We're seeing that with 80, Cecily, people that have left to try to do their shows. And it just, I don't really think people are going to know Cecily from Schmigadoon and be like, yes, she left SNL, did this show, and that's it. Or 80 also did the same thing. So I don't really know what's next, and maybe that's why he isn't. But I could see him going the talk show host route. But as we know, it's just straight white men that do that for late night specifically, and I don't think he's going to do daytime. So it's like, I don't know what would be next for him. So it makes sense for him to stay. So if he's going to stay, would Update make sense? Maybe.
They're also throwing a ton of money at him, I'm sure. Just
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
have to get him back
Oh,
at
I
the
think he's
show.
doing well for himself.
I think he's doing
I
great.
don't think he's
Yeah,
struggling, but like, what is he going to leave for is the question.
right. Well, it'll be interesting to see what he does this season. I'm also interested to see, how he fits into the rest of the cast. We talked about his relationship with Sarah and his relationship with Chloe, potentially to see them on screen. We just saw him with Mikey and James at the Emmys perform that sketch with Nate Bargatze. So, he's going to be working with the cast, but I wonder how he fits in with a lot of the new players in this cast. I mean, 33% of the cast is new cast members. And if you include Ben Marshall, there's, Tommy Brennan, a new stand up. Jeremy Culhane is, more of the sketch performer. We got Cam and Veronica, some really big personalities. Is there any one of them that really stands out to you as somebody who could potentially work with Bowen Yang?
I mean, I was like leaning towards Veronica initially, but then when I was talking about like how Bowen and Kate didn't have a strong partnership, Veronica is very much like a Kate McKinnon type of sketch. I think she's hysterical, but she is more one note, but it works. Like Kate played a lot of the same character in so many different forms and it worked a lot. I mean, you look at Kristen Wiig, she did the same thing. She basically played very similar roles across the board in everything she did, but it worked. That's how Veronica's really gotten successful is that same one character in all these different scenarios. And I don't know how that's going to work with Bowen, who kind of does play a lot of similar characters in all of his sketches. I don't exactly know who it'll be, and I'm really intrigued to see because like it's going to be really interesting. I think Bowen maybe and Ben could come together with something because I think they're both just very creative, strong writers and like more outrageous ideas that are based in reality. So maybe that's why that could work for the two of them.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think Veronica and Bowen are personalities to watch. I think they could click really well together. I think she's
Or
also
not at
set up.
all.
I mean that's a fascinating one. I think that their pairing could be exciting. I really am anticipating getting to see Veronica on this show, and I think that Bowen, if he figures it out and they have that chemistry, that could be very exciting. So that's the one that I'm definitely watching
Yeah.
for this season to
I
see
don't
if
know.
they
I've
click.
been following her for years and I think she's great, but I was a little shocked by her being on the show just because I was like, I can't picture her on the screen, but I also couldn't really picture Sarah. And it
Right.
makes sense. She's kind of redone the way that the sketches on the show have been since the past few years. Like Sarah's sketch. Honestly, Bowen's, but Bowen's is more from like the pop culture and having like that queer point of view to a lot of stuff that we haven't had in more recent years. But Sarah's was like before the show, I was a fan, and then I was like, I can't imagine her on SNL because what are they gonna do? But Veronica, I think, could have a really strong partnership with Ben Marshall because I think Veronica's like partner outside of the show, Kyle, is very similar to the Please Don't Destroy. I think their vibes could really work together. So those two, in my mind, were gonna click, and that's why I was like, someone like Ashley could be someone that Bowen works really, really well with because she was proven to be so strong last season, but she doesn't necessarily have her full characterization panned out yet. And I think that's something that Bowen could help bring out of her.
Okay. I mean, that'll be interesting. I know Bowen has a tendency to work with
Yeah.
women who have very strong personalities. So
Yeah.
Ashley is probably a little bit more of a subtle personality, but then on screen, she's like this incredible actor.
Exactly.
Versus Veronica has a bigger personality. So I'll be interested to see how they click
But think
and
about
how this all
80.
comes to it.
I don't think she has a crazy big personality, but then
That's
on
true.
when she's on stage, she's, so much. Like even her when she hosted an award show a few years ago and her monologue was not outrageous, whatever, but it was very 80. And I think
Yeah.
that I don't know. It's gonna be really interesting. I do think he is someone that can work with so many different personality types on the show, but that's why I imagine like in my head I'm like equating like Ashley could be a new 80 where it's like she is so much on stage in such a strong way that like I think she could work well with Bowen. I don't know though. I think it'll be really interesting to see.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to watch. So overall, Rebecca, let's get your prediction for Bowen Yang this season. Is he going to be the face of Saturday Night Live in season 51?
For the first half, yes, I think there's a way that he could pull a Cecily and leave halfway through the season, but I think he is with a big cast shakeup, you like continuity and you like having a strong player. And I think that's what Cecily did do for the show. And she helped transition on to kind of the next new era of people. And I think Bowen will definitely be I mean, he has been the face, to be fair, even with really strong players in the past 3 years. Like, he was the face for going into 50. He's a very face for the public. And I think it would be a huge missed opportunity to not utilize his popularity in just pop culture and society and all of his really strong Hollywood connections. So I do think he will be the face, at least for the first half, and then we'll see what happens.
It's getting exciting. Can't wait to
I
see what
know.
we're going to see from Bowen Yang in just a couple of weeks now. So I hope you enjoyed our discussion on Bowen today. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about his other castmate, Chloe Fineman, who he joined the show with, and we'll get into what we could see from her potentially this season in season 51. If you've been enjoying these preview podcasts day after day, I want to know your thoughts on these cast members. So write on the YouTube channel to give us your comments. And of course, we're available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find podcasts. Subscribe to Saturday Night Network, and you can follow us on all social platforms at the SNL Network to never miss any of the content we have going on. We just wrapped up our countdown of the SNL's greatest episodes of all time that we've been doing all summer long. So go back and check out that series, and we will have more season 51 content coming out very soon. Rebecca, thank you for joining us here today. Anything you would like to say to the listeners as we head into your 6th season talking about SNL with us?
I mean, just as per usual, I'm super, super excited. I think we knew last season was going to be a lot of the same because it was leading up to the monumental 50th. But this season with a big refresh, I kind of feel like was similar to what we were talking about 6 years ago with different refreshes and a lot of exits. So I'm very, very excited for season 51 and to come back on the podcast and talk with you.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Rebecca. Of course, we're here as a presentation of Late Nighter, and I want to thank all of everyone for hanging out with us today, watching this premiere, and Rebecca for joining us on the show. On behalf of everyone here at the SNN, my name is John Schneider, and we will see you next time. Have a good one.
It's on the Saturday Night Network.